Hi, today I'm going to show you how to use the Thread Learning iPad application. So you can first download the Thread iPad application on your iPad by going to the App Store right here and searching for Thread Learning. There we are. As you can see now with CentralReach superpowering us. Okay, so once you have the app, and you can see I've downloaded it right here, you can log in, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to sign out so that we can log in. So if you want to sign up the first time, it's right here. Log into my team. This is an old version of Thread that won't be there in a month, and then use my email to log in. So we'll be rejiggering this with SSO and CentralReach in the next month, but right now you're going to go here. Now we're using the web to log in, so this is just warning you that we're using a web application instead of doing it natively. So we pull up the website. We use greg.threadlearning, greg at Gmail. Demo, and we're in. Okay, so now you are in the iPad app for Thread, and you can see Brandon's program book right here. So you can scroll through it, and it's worth noting that you're going to see a different version of Thread depending on what customer you are. During onboarding, we help set up your organization settings so that Thread fits you like a glove right from the beginning. So these groupings, large group, individual, NET, that's a setting that we built for one of our clients, and a couple of them use it, and it just groups your program book into categories. But not everyone's going to see that right away. I'll go through some of the other settings as we get further along. So we have Brandon's program book. If we want to touch on any of these programs, we can see exactly what's going on. So if we touch shaving armpits, we can see the last score in the phase, the number of trials in each program run, the criterion for mastery. We can scroll down and see the procedure, all the tasks or steps. If we want to edit it, we can do that. Right over here, we see when we last ran it. So it's been 2 months since we last ran the task analysis program, shaving armpits. Below the title, you can see active steps 1 through 23. On a discrete trial or percentage correct program, you can see the target. So we're working on jump and imitates gross motor actions. It was last run 2 weeks ago. If you want, you can jump through to the graph right here, or the chart. So if we click on that, it can bring us through the chart, but I'll go through the charting training a little bit later. And finally, we have an overflow menu. That's what that ... is. And it lets you add ABC data to any particular program. It lets you view the chart. You can edit it. You can backdate a score. So if you wanted to say, like, I got 14 out of 28 a couple days ago, you could, and create a new data point. So we could save that, but I'm not going to. And then you can archive it. So this is really intended to be Brandon's active program book. So these are the programs you're actively working on with him. When you archive a program, and let's find one to archive. So here's an older imitates gross motor actions, and it's a duplicate. So if we archive it, we can archive it as mastered, on hold, or discontinued. Since this is a duplicate, we're going to say it was discontinued. So that is kind of the program setup screen. Now, typically what you're going to do in Thread is that you're going to set up your day in this blue drawer at the bottom. This is your work area, so it's Greg Brill's work area. And right now there are 0 programs in it, but I can add them. So if I check the boxes next to these, and here's the boxes, you can see that we're adding these programs to my my drawer. And if I wanted to, I could flip from Brandon to another child or learner and add something from them. So I'm going to add sits and seat for Amanda as well. And let me just really quickly clear something from that one. We'll get into that in a moment as well. So that also got added to my drawer here. And so it's really easy to work with multiple students at the same time. So I'm opening up my drawer by clicking anywhere on the blue. And you have all those programs that I put out there. It's all drag and droppable, so I want to put the sit and seat next to each other. So I drag that together. Um, and I can run multiple programs of different types of data. So, percentage correct, discrete trial, task analysis, um, interval, all at the same time with different kiddos. And so, for example, I could run these two task analyses at the same time. This one's on a 1 minute. This is a 15 seconds, so you can see it moving much faster. And we're going to hear a beep, though you won't hear it, but there will be a beep as soon as we get to the next interval here. So right now, it turns white, it beeps. If you're not in the app, you'll get a notification that lets you come back in or even put the data in without re-entering thread, and you can uh, for any of these white ones, you can add data. So we start with NA, but if they were sitting in their sheet, we can change that to a plus, or if they weren't, to a minus. This works for uh, full interval, partial interval, and momentary time sampling. We can also default the NAs to pluses or default them to minuses depending on how you set up the program. So that's a task analysis. You can also be taking discrete trial information and intersperse the program. So you can see I'm taking it on two different programs. Um, Once you hit, so this one we're at 4 of 9. We've put 20 trials as the set amount of trials that you're supposed to get to before you graph. And so once you hit 20, it's going to stop me. These keys become inactive. So we're at 12 of 20, 20 trials. Um, you can also set up your program so that they're unlimited trials. And if they're unlimited trials, when you are done, you just press, it says stop right here instead of 20 trials. And when you press stop, it graphs it. So it's important to remember if you're doing unlimited trials that you do have to graph it yourself. It's not going to automatically graph it at the end of the day. This is so if you wanted to aggregate across multiple days, especially in a school setting, you could if you didn't get to the number of trials that you needed to graph. As you can see, that one is done. We can take a look if we wanted to run this one again. So this is listener responding. And it's worth noting that if we had so right here we show the SD. So there's no SD set for these two programs. For imitate Grossman or actions, it's do this. And then it shows the target you're working on right here. And so if we run this one again, so let's say you wanted to create another data point. We just made one. It's 12 of 20. By clicking the little graph symbol here, we can go through to the graph and see that data point we just put in, 12 of 20. But before we get into that, we can also run this one again and reset it if we want to create another data point. So we get to 7 of 10. Maybe we don't have time. If we want to stop it early, we can stop it early. It says typically record 20 trials, but now you've only recorded 10. Are you sure you want to stop and graph? Yes, I do. Makes another data point. It's now 7 out of 10. Let's try it one more time. If we want to run it again, we can also go into what we call focus mode. So just like here, if you click on a program, you can see all the details. We do something similar in the drawer. So if you click on the program, you can see that we have the teaching procedure, the SD, the prompt level, and the reinforcement schedule. Every once in a while, there's that little display, but it's something that is on our list. And you can edit the program here. And if you click this little up arrow, it's going to hide that information for you. And the kind of secret power of focus mode for discrete trial or percentage correct programs is that we split out the targets. So that you're working on 3 targets, you can see exactly what they are, and you can take data on each individually. So I can go ahead and take data here. As soon as I hit 20, so this is the total score, 10 out of 18, 2 out of 4 on this target, 6 out of 10 on this target, 2 out of 4 on this target, so you can make sure you get roughly the equal amounts of each. It stops me, and now it's graphed and I can close. couple other things you can do. So focus mode on a interval program shows you all the intervals written out, so you can go back in time much further and change data if you need to. Um, Focus mode on a well, we haven't really gone over task analysis, but we'll go over task analysis. So um, shaving armpits right here. We have the first step, wet washcloth. We can put plus, minus, or NA. If we put plus, it goes to 1 of 1. If we put minus, it goes to 1 of 2. If we put NA, it's going to stay at 1 of 2. It doesn't affect the numerator or the denominator. But you can see we're cycling through our steps here. So picks up shaving cream plus, opens shaving cream is the next step. Now we can click into this, and for task analysis, our focus mode, go ahead, does something similar. It shows us all the tasks that we're working on. So we've already put in the data for this step, this step, this step, this step. We're right here. We can say plus, but you can also jump out of order if you need. So if we wanted to skip down to 9, we could, and it'll bring us back up to 6, and then we can keep going through. Additionally, you can make steps inactive, so you can forwards chain and backwards chain if you need. So these steps 24, 25, 26, 27 are inactive, and so they won't be graphed, and you're not able to take data on that. But it's of course editable. You can make them all active if you wanted to. It doesn't automatically progress you through a forwards chain or a backwards chain, but it gives you that optionality. We try to tell you whenever anything is ready to move on, but we try not to make clinical decisions on your behalf. So that's task analysis. You can also undo. So we just put in a piece of data. This undo button's available. We can undo back down, and you can see the score went down, and we're going back in terms of tasks. So all the way back down to 0. Right here we have a kind of a program doesn't make a whole lot of sense with the target being skip and imitates gross motor actions. This is an errorless teaching program. So right now we're on an independent prop level. If we wanted to do a probe, a cold probe of one trial, we could. We could put in a plus or a minus. We'll just put a plus. Or actually, let's put a minus. And we can stop it, end it, create a data point for that minus. And then if we want to run it again, we can start doing errorless teaching with this little P button. It also has a mode where it automatically has you take baseline data with just a plus or a minus the first time you will run a target, but I'm doing a probe not for the first time, so that's why I did it that way. But let's say you're on an independent prop level. If you put in a minus, it's going to record just as any minus. If you put in a plus, it's going to record just as any plus. If you press P, you can't have an independent prop level, so it'll give you this prompt hierarchy. So if we were to choose full physical, it just recorded a negative, so a minus, with a full physical prop level attached to it. Now, if we were to press P again, it's not going to ask us this time. It's just going to assume it's full physical. So 1 out of 4. If we want to change the prop level, so maybe we're switching from full physical to partial physical, we hold the P down. It brings up the prompt hierarchy again. Partial physical. We've just switched it to partial physical right here as well. So any other P's are going to become partial physical. Finally, if we put a minus in, when there's a partial physical prompt, nothing happens. It just records a minus without a prompt. But if we press the plus, it brings it back to independent. And so if you press P again, you're going to need to go back to whatever prompt that you want. This is the most common flow for most of our users, and so we've set it up this way. There's probably other functionality that we could build in there potentially, but this is the most common use case for errorless teaching. Now, there's also this row called maintenance. So because most of these programs in this drawer are branded, we assume you're working with Brandon. You can go to our beta version of maintenance, and you can see all the discrete trial / percentage correct programs that you've mastered with him. So we mastered blue from ID colors on December 10th, 2018. And it's randomized each time. So each time we open it, it's going to give you a new list. And maintenance is going to continue to be developed. But this is a setting, so we turn this on for customers who want it. We realize it's not fully featured yet, but it's something that we're working on. Um, and we wanted to get you something where you can go back in and see kind of all of his program targets together, just like you would with, say, cue cards, um, especially in an early intervention setting. Um, so back to Amanda or Brandon, if you'd like. We've been taking some data, and I'm going to show you what the graph looks like for each of these. So let's jump through to this uh, imitates gross motor action one that we worked on. Let's make one real quick. So we'll do 11 of 20. We click through, look at this data point. 11 of 20. Greg Brill took the data, so we're always recording who took the data. This was the time. The date is right here. If we click on this 55%, we can see trial by trial data, and it'll also show you what the prompt level was for each trial. We have this data type option. Now this lets you annotate your chart with symbols. So we have a pretest symbol, a probe symbol, and a post-test symbol. So it's easy enough to just switch that. It's a manual process though. The only time we specify pretest is if you're the first program run of an errorless teaching program for a particular target. So first time you run a target, we label it as pretest, and we don't give you the option to prompt. Now, some people like to do many trials on their pretest or their cold probe, depending on your terminology. But you can do many trials or you can do one. It is up to you. Uh, Editing is right here, so editing is actually quite powerful. You can change the score, right from here. You can change the date, move the date around, or change what phase it is in. So this data point right here, if we wanted to edit it and move it to the previous phase, so we have all the phases listed here, we just move it over, and so you can see that it's skipped into the other phase. Now, anytime you edit a data point, we just put this label. It says it was manually recorded. This means we didn't take the data ourselves, so we don't know where the score came from. So we just say, look, someone changed this at this time, and it's just a part of your record keeping process. The same thing happens when you backdate data. It just puts this label there. Everyone knows that it was recorded at that time by this person. Um, Deleting data points. So supervisors and admin can delete data points. If you delete a data point, it goes away. There is a deleted data points area here where you can recover that data point for a particular client. Let's see, we just took one off of Brandon. So if we press this undo button right here, it's really a recovery button. We bring this data point back. You can see Greg Brill, April 1st, time, percentage, all those good things. So going back to the chart, um, you can also add a note to a data point. So as you can see, as soon as you create a note, we put this little border on the note to let everyone know there's a note there. They can click on it and see the note. And if you click the note, you can edit it. So that's quite useful for annotating things. Another way to annotate things is our phase bar. So this bar at the top tells you what's kind of going on in your phase. So if you click on it, it's going to give you all the information. But by default, we just tell you what target you're working on right now. And you can go back in and label it if you want. So, right now it's jump, but if we were to change the label, we could say baseline or something of that nature, and it's going to label it as baseline. This will show up on printed charts as well in reports. You can also edit from here. You can delete the latest phase if you accidentally created a phase by accident. Now, if you edit from here, you're editing the program. So we're going to edit the program. Maybe jump with something that is mastered. So we have this current target and all these mastered ones. As you can see, we reuse the same targets in our demos, but we can click this little check mark and cycle, turn that to mastered, and we can create a new one like clap, and it'll be a current target. If we wanted multiple targets, we could say stop. Let's say pinch, although I don't know if you want to teach that one. And if we wanted to, pinch could be a future target. So let's say we don't want to work on it now. So if we wanted it to be mastered, we could, but we could also flip it to future, and this just saves it for later. So right now, if I save it, it's going to master jump from right here. It's going to add clap and stop to a new phase, and it's going to keep pinch for the future. So I'm going to save. And we give you the option here of creating a phase change line or not creating a phase change line. Almost always the answer is you want to create a phase change line. We do give you the option not to create a phase change line because we want you to be able to correct a mistake that you made. So if you've created a phase and you're just adding information to it, or you put a typo in, very easy to go back in and edit it and just not create a phase change line. So going back to this program, if we were to run it again, we now have clap and stop as options. If we were to go through to the chart, you can see we have this new phase, clap and stop, right here. And we have this nice phase change line. So you don't have to manually put a phase change line in. Anytime you edit, we offer to put a phase change line in there for you. So that's a nice little feature there. Additionally, we have another setting that we can turn on for your organization, and it's this grayed out data point. So if you have this feature on, for each program, you set a number of trials that is the minimum number of trials required. And if they don't hit that number, the data point gets turned gray. So in this example, the minimum number of trials is 5, and this data point only had 2 trials. The denominator was only 2, so it didn't hit that 5. And so we label it as insufficient data, turn it gray. The reason these ones over here were gray is because we had highlighted this phase. So we just highlight the phase that you're working in so it doesn't distract you with the other phases. A couple other things to note in the graphing section. So number one, you can show the weekdays without data. So right here at the bottom, we have a data point view. So 9:30, 10:31, there's a big gap there, right, between those two dates. But since we didn't have sessions where we ran this program, we're not showing it. We don't want to show these big gaps to insurance companies and parents when it's not necessarily clinically relevant. And so if you do want to show those, you can press this show hide feature, and it's going to show you all the weekdays where you didn't take data. And so you have these kind of gaps. You can kind of move back. We also have a cumulative chart where you can see how many total data points or how many total targets were mastered. So if you just want to keep track of how many things were mastered over time, you can see we were making a lot of progress on criterion met early on, and then we've really flattened out as we've done more demos and stopped using this program as much. So if you click on any of these data points, they correspond with the same ones on the other sheet. You can see what the mastered targets are at that time. So we can see, like, early on we had those 6 targets mastered. Much later on we have a much larger list. So that's the cumulative chart. Another thing that's kind of worth showing is charting for this errorless teaching one. So we can go through to that chart and take a look, and you can see we say partial physical. That is the prompt level at the end of the program run. So you ended with a partial physical prompt. This helps you know what to move on to the next time you run the program. And 7 of your 11 trials were prompted. Now, if you click this 18% here, you can see trial 1, trial 2, trial 3, and we show you the prompt levels as well. So that is another piece. And finally, for a program with so this one right here we ran in focus mode. If you recall, we did it in this area, and you can see the scores right here. So if we view the chart on this one, we're going to see the breakdown as well. So 2 out of 7, 6 out of 10, 3 out of 6. So we'll show you that within the data point as well, although it's graphing it as an aggregate across all the targets. For the graphing for shaving armpits, which is a task analysis, if we go through the graph, we show you the active steps in the phase bar. So we were working on these, and you can see which ones right here: inactive, inactive, inactive. And then also you can flip through to a bar chart as well. So, and if we flip over to the bar chart, we can see for each step what is the percentage that you're getting correct in this stage. So for step number 1, and if you wanted to see what step number 1 is, it's wet washcloth. We're scoring almost 90%, 87%, and in this phase. And we're getting 62 of 71 of the trials correct. So we know step 2, which is our lowest, step 2. And if we want to look, we know that what's non-preferred armpit is what we're really struggling with. And so there's this bar graph as well, just for task analysis. Finally, if you'd like, you can print the chart right here. The printed chart looks a little bit more like what you'd see in a journal. It's black and white, and then we have a mastered targets list as well. So on the second page, it says all the targets you've mastered and when you mastered them. So that's also really helpful. Trials to criterion right here, if that's something that you're interested in. Obviously, 235 is quite a few trials to criterion. And that's basically it for the graphing on the iPad. A couple other things I want to show you. You can see how many trials you attempted today, how many you normally attempt with Brandon, just to keep you kind of managing your trial count or the amount of work that you do. We also have, so we have this public area right here, public. And this is a cool feature that lets you collaborate with multiple other instructors. So it's especially helpful in a school setting where you're in a classroom with multiple teachers and multiple students. But it can also be helpful in a supervisor setting or a social groups reimbursement code. So if you go into the public section, we have this contrast color with the blue section. So this is public programs, and the reason that they're named public is because you're collaborating with others on the program. So if I press plus or start there's a duration, right, tantrum, it's counting up 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds. I can stop it. Okay, so one tantrum, one time, 8 total seconds. We do another one and stop it. It's 10 seconds. Now, a different instructor with a different iPad or device running our web application, so it could be a phone or a computer, if they pull up this program, they're going to see 2 and 10. So they're seeing exactly what you're seeing right here, and they can add to your score. So they can press the play button, and then when it's done, it's going to add that to this. And so, we might be not in that area at all. We come back and it says 12 seconds and 3 times. And that's because you're collaborating with your colleagues on it. In this purple section, blue section, the private drawer, if I have 6 out of 10 and someone else starts this, they're creating a separate data point, so it's not messing up your data. So the reason we do it this way is we want you to know that anything in here is yours. No one can touch it. In the public section, it's a collaborative event, so they can be helping you with, for example, an interval program or a frequency program. You don't have to say, hey, how many mans did you see during that session, and then aggregate them all yourself. They can just add to that 5 if they'd like to. And so this is also typically where we keep behavior data in general. It's always one click away. So if you're in this area, you click public, bam, you're there. If you're in your work area, you can toggle between public and private right here. So that's the public drawer. Something that I think is super important and something that we really pride ourselves on at Thread is this question mark box. So the question mark box is how you access support at Thread. So we click this, the help center is right there. Chat with us. You can check for an update on the App Store. Chat with us is the most important one, though our help articles are great as well. You can start a new conversation with customer support. Sue is one of the reasons why people love us so much. So you can say hi, Sue, and it will go ahead and pull up a dialogue with her, and then you can close it out. And whenever she responds, it'll just pop up on your screen. We try to get back pretty quickly. And if you need her to call you, we can do things by phone or video if needed, and she'll help you work through your issues, or if you have any questions. Session notes right here. So we've created some data points for this session. If we go into our session notes, we can see Brandon's session notes. So Thread automatically creates a session note for you if you took data today. So we have this today's session note. And the reason we do that is we want to frame for an RBT, for example, that you need to submit your session note so that you can be in compliance. And it's really, really easy to do within Thread. And so we have this big red submit your session note form. And when you click on it, create a new session note and put in your information, and you insert the smart note, and it actually describes, it translates all the work you did. So we say, oh, we worked on listener responding, uh, and the client improved and worked on these targets and scored 60%. And so we're not putting any subjective information. We want you to do that, but we're giving you a list of all the information that you might have worked on, so that you don't have to type it all in yourself. And it'll save you a lot of time. Sometimes, I think typically you get 15 minutes to write your session note, and it takes much longer for most folks. This lets you do it in like 5 minutes. If you want to go in there and delete anything or add anything, it's pretty easy to do as well. So if you wanted to get rid of that bullet point, you could. You can add a couple sentences at the end that kind of give a more detailed sketch. And then at the bottom, so we'll insert one for behaviors as well, and then for skill acquisition. And you can submit for signature at the bottom and have the parent sign. Your signature, as the person who's creating the session note, gets loaded because we know you're signed in, so we have your authentication, and we can put that signature, which can be printed out later. So we're going to save that as a draft since we haven't put the signature yet. And we can come back in here and make changes to it if we want. So if we put the correct date in, say 3:30 at 1 p.m. and at 12 p.m. and then we submit it for signature, you can sign. Done. And it's now submitted right down here. Now, if you want to see the other notes that other staff have put for your child, you can see that right here. You can see their notes. and take a look and make sure that you're informed when you work with your child. This requires signature tab. That just means the note is done, but they haven't gotten the signature yet. And so you can bulk sign signatures if you'd like to. So if you have multiple require signature items right here, you'll see a button that says bulk sign. So that can be useful if you're only seeing the parent every couple sessions, for example. Um, so that's the session note feature. Now, it's important also to note that all of this works online and offline. So if you're offline, everything works normally, and then when you come online, it'll sync. Um, Now, we generally suggest you sync every day. You also need to be online in order to sign in for the first time, and so we can't tell that you're you if you don't have a connection. So we need to verify your password. But if you're offline, you're going to get a bar across the top that just says when the last time you synced was. And like I said, we like for you to sync every day because all that data is stored on your local iPad, and if the iPad were to break, you would lose any data since you last synced. So we try to have people do it at least once per day. So that's session notes. We also have a parent email function that can kind of replace session notes for people who don't use them, mostly for schools. This book is where you set up new programs. So if you come into here, you have discrete trial programs. You can do a new task analysis, a new frequency, a new duration, a new interval. To create a new program is fairly easy. We'll do ID colors. Number of trials, 20, or if we wanted to, we could do 5, or we could say unlimited. You can do the minimum required trials. If you don't have this setting on, you won't even see this field. A lot of people just tell them, look, if you don't hit 5 trials, don't graph at all. And so if that's the case, we don't want to confuse people. Thread learning is all about keeping things super simple. Your default criterion for mastery is going to pop up here. If you don't set a default, it's 1 score of 100, 2 scores of 90. We can do 3 scores of actually, let's do 3 scores of something lower. So either of these, 2 scores of 80 in a row or 3 scores of 70 in a row, are going to trigger mastery. You can put in definition, procedure, targets, red, blue, green, maybe. Possibly red was mastered previously, so we can click that there. Blue, we're going to do in the future, and we're going to work on green right now. Setting is which grouping it goes into on the program book, so we'll put it in the DTT one. Fixed ratio 3 is the reinforcement level. And then at the bottom, you can assign it to more than one student. So let's say you're typing this up, you're going to make it for all 6 of them, but you don't want to type it 6 times or 5 times, I should say. You can just check the 5 and it'll create it 5 times. And then each student has each learner has a different independent ID colors starting with green. So if you edit it now, it'll only edit it for Brandon. That's program creation. Curriculum is a way to create program from a template. So we have a bunch of templates. You can choose imitate gross motor actions. And you can say like 2 scores of whatever. It's got the targets listed for you. You check the ones you want to run and then assign it and save. So that's another way to do it. We can also upload, whoops, I need to put in setting. We can also upload your curriculum into our curriculum section. As long as you give it to us in a Excel format, we can send you that Excel file and you can upload it or give it to us and upload it. We're also building a curriculum management section in our web application. So that is program creation. Archived programs live here. So if you archive some programs, you can recover them. You can either print them or unarchive them. It tells you the last entry. So this is not when you archived it. It's when the data point was the last data point in this program and whether it was discontinued, put on hold, or mastered. If you really, really, really need to delete one, there's this delete functionality as well. Finally, we have this notification center right here. So notification center is used for automated quality control. This is one of the features that people like the most. So um, almost every application will let you know when criterion is met. So there's a trigger for criterion, and we're no different. So if we take a target like this, one score of 100 is mastery, and we were to enter a score of 20 out of 20, so this should create mastery. Um, it's going to go ahead and this red dot would have popped up if we didn't already have notifications. This just means we have some, so there should be at least one in here. And you can see that Brandon has met criterion on ID colors. We can click this to go through to the chart, take a look, make a clinical decision, um, and uh, and kind of move on. And so right now this program's actually locked, so no one can run it. If I were to try to run it, it says pending decision. And a BCBA, so only supervisors level people, so often BCBAs have this notification center right now. So a BCBA can go in and uncheck the uh, the program and therefore unlock the program. Um, but that's not just for criterion. So anytime your child is not learning at the speed they should be on a particular program, we will send a notification to you. So we use for that peer-reviewed research out of Professor Douglas Greer, who calls it decision point protocol. That's our basic framework because he's published some great work that details the learning gains in terms of criterion met that you get when you institute these types of rules. And so if a child goes 3 data paths on ID colors without improvement, so that would be basically 4 data points or 3 data points after kind of setting a baseline, or 5 data paths without reaching criterion, we'll freeze it and let all your BCBAs for Brandon know or all your supervisors know. Now we don't have to freeze it with this pending decision tag, which just tells you, we're waiting for a BCBA to make a decision either to change something about the program or move to the next target. We can also just notify you without freezing it. And then we can also do it for other types of quality control issues. So if and this comes from my experience in the classroom, there's always a program that Brandon's running that doesn't get run, either because Brandon doesn't like it, or the RBTs don't have the materials, or it takes too long. And so we also have a alert for if multiple sessions go by without a program being run. So, like, I ran all these other programs with Brandon, but I didn't do shaving armpits multiple times in a row. Um, and that can be set for 1 time in a row or 2 times in a row or kind of different numbers as well, kind of through our onboarding process. So that is basically everything there is about the iPad application. You can log out here, sign out, and next up I will show you the web application. Thank you so much.